today. We have the honor to come with Professor Teófilo Altamirano, speaking on environmental refugees, climate change, and human displacement. Professor Altamirano is currently Tinker Professor at a university for which I have a lot of respect and great memories, the University of Texas at Austin. He is now currently Tinker Professor there. He holds a PhD from both from the University of Durham in England and la Universidad Nacional Mayor de San Marcos. He had taught for many years at the Universidad Pontificia Católica del Perú, but he just informed me that he's retired, though he's still using the title of the Universidad in the talk, but he recently retired. And unlike many of us who are very scared about retirement, he seems to be very happy about being retired. He's also been a consultant of the World Bank and many other organizations. He's originally trained as an anthropologist, and he has carried research in many on issues of poverty and inequality in Peru and other parts. He has more than 12 books, and his last book, the most recent one, is called Refugiados Ambientales, Cambio Climático y Desplazamiento Humano, published in this year, 2012. So please join me in welcoming Professor Teófilo Altamirano.
Thanks, Mauricio, for your introduction, and thanks also to the Center for Latin American Studies and to Ireri, who made it possible to visit this university. Yes, I hope that I will accomplish all the expectations you have raised, and at the end we can have a dialogue. Of course, because the concept of climate change is a fact. It's not a discourse, it's not a political ideology, it's based on facts. So that's what I'm going to describe. Where is it happening, how we can confront this, the climate change. Climate change is a world phenomenon, see? But the impact are local. Now, I'd like to start giving numbers. I think giving numbers brings us the idea that we can compare not only the numbers but also the authors and all of the things which are behind the numbers. Numbers are numbers. But behind numbers, there are people, communities, hopes, expectations, all of those things which are much more cultural. So that's what I would like to address. So let me start taking a quotation of the Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change, which is a kind of institution which brings all together institutions from around the world. Institution which has been created 10 years ago, and they are in charge of accounting the happenings of global change around the world. They meet every 2 years and they exchange ideas, reports given by nationals and international scholars. Therefore, I think it's a very much credible institution. Now, according to them, there are at least 50 million displaced population or environmental refugees in the world nowadays. Can be more, it can be less, but it's the approximate. There are some authors who stands for more, 80, 100 million people, others 20, 30, and so on. But 50 million, I think, is the most accurate number of these people around the world. 70% of them are in Africa. As I'll explain why is that. Now, by the year 2050, according to the IPCC, Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change, there will be 250 million displaced population or environmental refugees. Those people who are leaving their place of origin because they cannot live there anymore, because the conditions are worsening, you know, especially water. Water stress is the major driving force which will evacuate these people from their very place of origin. Maybe communities, cultures, languages, etc. Now, comparing with numbers, see, United Nations High Commission for Refugees is this institution which are specialized on counting how many refugees are in the world. And they do since 1950, when it was founded with the United Nations. It has been created because, you know, after the Second World War, there were many people running away of their countries in Europe. So they wanted to create a special institution. That was the United Nations High Commission for Refugees. They agree that there are around 40 million people in the world. Between the displaced population, which is those who are running from their place of origin but stays within their borders, within their nation. And the displaced population, internally displaced population, counts around 25 million. And 15 million people are refugees. We have to distinguish between internally displaced population and refugees. Refugees are those who are trespassing their frontiers, their boundaries, and they are living in another country, which brings also another kind of problems, solutions. See? And that's not very easy, because the host country may not be able to receive all of these people running. Imagine all of these people, the Syrian people, the Syrians caught in two fires, running to Turkey, to Lebanon. All of these people who are running away from their country because there are problems of political dispute, social confrontations, religious hatred, ethnic, racial hatred. All of those are the components who are pushing these people to go away to their country, and they become refugees. Unfortunately, this displaced population within the nation are not covered, are not being attended by the United Nations High Commission for Refugees. They have to because, you know, they are internally displaced refugees, therefore they have to take into account that situation. Now, these are the numbers. You know, we can be sometimes believe these numbers or not. We may be a little bit cautious because numbers changes, because these people are always moving from one place to another, from one country to another. Therefore, counting them, it's not that easy. Therefore, bear in mind to take this with caution. However, I think these numbers are somehow accurate, or it gives us the comparison between how fast is growing the environmental refugees, see, comparing to the refugees by other reasons, by political reasons especially, internal war, international war, or earthquakes, natural disasters, all of those who are running from their place of origin, and so on. So what I am going to talk about tonight is just the environmental refugees. See? Why is that we can now talk about these new kinds of people running from their place of origin? And what are the major causes? Where is taking place those causes? How can we mitigate those causes? How can the global meetings, summits taking place every 4 years can be ready to modify the changing environment, climate change, therefore to reduce at least the impact of climate change. As you know, all of these summits takes place every 4 years. Rich countries assist there, including China, India, Russia, Canada, the emerging countries, you know. But they didn't agree to do a global decision in order to reduce the carbon dioxide they are producing. Therefore, climate change will continue. As long as these big countries won't be able to agree, even though when they are the very, very first to produce climate change. United States produces 30% of the carbon dioxide, which is the major producer of climate change. However, it has only 5% of population. They don't agree. They don't agree how to reduce the climate change effect. Therefore, I would like to see in the next pages, in the next session, how we have to face climate change as a phenomenon, a real phenomenon. This is a project which is going on. I am in charge of this project. I still belong to my university. They gave me an affiliation, and also to the United Nations Population Fund, which is give me some small quantity of money in order to carry on this research. I'm an anthropologist, so I'm much more interested in the human being, in the culture, and so on. Therefore, I would like to emphasize how this climate change can also change the minds of the population. So let's go to the first. Now, of course, there are two major components when we are dealing with climate change. There are some causes and effects. We agree that there is a global warming. There is no doubt about that. The greenhouse effect is one of the consequences of the global warming. See? And then the third, the human intervention, us. We are producing these changes to the climate. We are the only ones who can at least reduce those changes. So what we call is anthropogenic. We are the producers of climate change. Through what? The emission of carbon dioxide. You know, all of these emerging countries now are using more and more energies. They won't stop. Therefore, they will continue because they said, okay, rich countries already have spent a lot of emission. Why don't we can use more energy in order to develop our potentials? That's what they say in every summit. Then water management. There are less and less water available, both quantity and quality of water. So managing water is becoming more and more crucial. Before it used to be, you know, a resource which can be taken anytime from anywhere. Still, that idea is very much in mind of the population. See? Therefore, we need to manage the water. The scarce resource will be the water in the years to come. Deforestation, of course. We are losing more and more our forest. Because there are pressure of 7 billion population who still needs that wood in order for industrial construction, for paper, and so on. See? So the depletion of the forestry is taking place every year. Mostly in the Amazon. Thousands of hectares has been depleted annually. See? All of the migrants going to the lowlands, to the Amazon, They are cutting all the time the wood available. So deforestation, I think, is another one which is. I know that there are good two answers to that. One is that the population growth is not that much as it used to be in 30 years ago. We are reaching a point in which population growth will be stagnant. Therefore, in the year 2030, the population growth will decrease. So all of those countries who are now having more fertility are going to have less children. Therefore, they will enter to the fourth stage of the transitional demography, what they call the demographers, which means more life expectancy, less mortality, less morbidity. Therefore, these people will have less children, which will reduce this, the amount of people added annually. That's a good demographic answer, which is going on all over the year. In Latin America, we're an aging population. So we still have the demographic bonus nowadays in Latin America because we still have a lot of young people. And we are not going to have that young people in 20, 30 years ahead. And the second is the good news, maybe, if all the technology developed in developing countries can serve to reduce the impact of climate change. Clean technology, all of these alternatives which are now in discussion, can be another source of changing the emission of carbon dioxide. See? Now, effects of global warming, what are the achievements we have reached in our research around the world? Well, the impact of, potential impact of climate change we will see in the sea rise level. That's definite. Sea rise level is already is 1 meter in the last 50 years. It will be added another meter in the year to come, in the year 2099. Therefore, we will add to the sea 2 meters more. You know, 20% of the global population lives between the sea level and the 20 meters. Why is that? Because internal migration, people tend to go to the coast, because those are the areas of more developments are taking place. If you see the map as well, you can notice the largest cities in the world are located near to the sea. Therefore, they are going to suffer, you know, the sea rise level, because that sea rise level will cover many fields. See? Now, the second one is the precipitation of water. See? Contradictorily, you know, climate change will precipitate more water. It will be much more difficult. You know, before the climate change, the regularity of the climate was very standardized. Wet season, dry season. That was, you know, even the agriculturists in the Andes used to accommodate their agriculture according to those changes taking place. Nowadays, it's becoming more irregular. Sometimes in summer maybe a rain, or in winter maybe a summer. And that affects a lot to the population, the irregularity. Now, it will also impact on health. Weather-related mortality, infectious diseases. You know, when the climate change is becoming warmer and warmer, the infectious diseases are likely to happen because all the bacteria lives better in warm conditions. Air quality, of course, we are breathing very bad air quality in many cities in the world. Mexico, Lima, Santiago. We can number many other cities where air quality is less and less, more and more difficult for the people. So that will produce respiratory diseases, which, who is going to suffer most? The poor. Poor is not going to cope all of these consequences. Of course, the middle class, like us, or rich people, will cope very easily. But how about the poor? What I am telling you is that all of these impacts are going to have more pressure on the poor, on the vulnerable. Who are they? Those who are in Africa, Latin America, Asia, and so on. Agriculture. There are more and more reports coming these last weeks in which they tell that there is coming an agricultural shortage. Less and less food to eat because water scarcity. And also because some countries are shifting agriculture to fuel, to produce fuel. Therefore, leaving all of these agricultural products, they call it renewable energy. Therefore, that's another consequence of agriculture. You see, irrigation demands. The people will need more and more water, as I'll explain. See, most of 65% of the problems in conflicts in my country, just in my country, comes from problem of water, producing conflicts between people. See, because it's becoming scarce more and more. Now the forest composition, forest health and productivity, of course. If we lose forestry, we are losing our very oxygen. The Amazon itself produces 60% of our oxygen in the world, and we are depleting the Amazon. Water resources, the water supply, water quality, competition for water. Now, coastal areas, erosion of beaches, which will be because more rain, more landslides, or more covering the coast by the sea level. Additional cost to protect coastal communities. That means money. Governments have to bear in mind that this is coming, therefore they have to be prepared in order to cope with these new problems, which is not in their minds, not in the budget, but it will happen. Species and natural areas, that's another. In my country, there are 108 ecological zones in the world. 89 of them are in Peru alone. Because we are a country of coast, highland, lowlands, upper Amazon, lower Amazon, almost we have all of the climates. Therefore, that is the major source why we are so rich in terms of our diversity. See, the huge diversity we have is in danger because the climate change will modify the lives. So it's not only the people who are going to suffer this, but also the animals and the birds and all of these species, which maintains the equilibrium in order to protect us, in order to make the ecology livable. Now, and of course, as I didn't mention, but the impact on human societies, on us. Who are them? The most vulnerable ones. Who are them? Are the ones who have to take action. And migration is one of them. Shouldn't be the only one. Should not be the only one. Because migration, displacing people, have to be the last consequence. They have to do before. Like what? Early warning systems, for example. Create to people that this situation is coming and not to wait to happen. Be prepared through school, through all of the seminars, or even we as university have to have that duty to do so. Now, let me talk about my research. This is the background of my research, but I would like to go to my research. Let's see facts. Let's see what I'm finding lately. I'm doing research for about 18 months. I just went last week to the Andes. You know, I was born there. I am Andean. I am a Quechua speaker. I can speak straight away in Quechua language, in Inca's language, with the very people. That makes me very proud. See, because I can communicate with them, because sometimes problem of development is problem of communication. Therefore, I'm glad to see this and also to share with them. I am not only presenting this in the University of Chicago or at UT, Texas, but also going to them and say this is happening. So we have to be much more prepared in order to at least see what is going to happen. It's located in the central highlands of Peru. Now let's see. As I said, you know, Peru has it's a very diverse country. We have a coast, which is, you know, the sea level, the sea. We have the underground reservoirs, which are very important because Peru has this 57% of the Peruvian population lives along the coast. And the coast represents only 10%. And the coast is completely arid. It's a desert. 80% of water which goes to the desert comes from the Andes, from the glaciers. See? And that water is necessary for human consumption, for animal consumption, and for agriculture. And sometimes when there is a summer, you know, these water reservoirs, underground reservoirs, are very important source in order to bring some water. And also we have the Ticlio, which is the mountain between 16,000 to 18,000 feet above the sea level. These two mountains which I am studying, where still we have glaciers. Now it's also there is one lake which was the result of the deglaciation. And also we have a city called Huancayo, which is the largest city in the Andes. And it's growing about 3.5% per year. That means in 30 years it will double the population. Lima is more than 8 million population. Out of 30 million, it's almost 1 of every 3 Peruvians lives in this desert city, which is Lima, which takes 80% of the water of the glaciers. See? Now, this lake, Junín, provides a watershed system in which we have a lot of peasant population, agriculturists, llama growers, all of those Indians who are pasturing llamas, which is a very ancient tradition in Peru. See? Therefore, they live underneath the glacier. See? They live along the watersheds, see? And also in the valley, which is now that water also is going to the Amazon. You know, 90% of the water produced by the glacier goes to the Amazon. Just 5% goes to the coast, which we need. Therefore, you can see the Amazon there, the rainforest. As we have the largest river in the world, the Amazon. So that is the system of the Central Andes. It's a horizontal cut. And that you can apply this picture to any chains of the Andes. See? Now, how is the water cycle? You know, in Peru we have 2 major cycles, water cycles. October to March is the rainy season in the Andes. Rainy season means, water which are giving more possibility to the glacier to grow, to maintain its size. And also, of course, there are more and more rains in the rainforest. Rainforests always characterized having more rain. So rainy climate, rivers, lakes, and glaciers grow. The groundwater table fills. A year in the valley of Lima captures 80% of that water. The rest goes to the sea. So most of that's 5% of the water goes to the sea. So there have to be some imaginaries in order to keep how can we benefit of this 5% of water, which is most of them are going to the sea, or the 95% of water which is going to the lowlands, to the Amazon. We can make reservoirs to protect the water, and therefore we can use that reservoirs, especially dams, during winter cycle. Now winter cycle, April, September, that is the dry season. Dry season, the sun hits more, and the only source of water are the glaciers. The glaciers melt, providing water to the Lima city, to the city of Huancayo, to all the watershed system, to all population, not only to the small population, and also goes to the rainforest. Dry climate, glaciers partially melt. Partially melt because the sun is heating more and more. So what's going to happen in just 3 years? I'm not predicting 10, 20, 30, just 3 years. Events that's sure to happen. We can prove once more and more and say we can come up with the same conclusion. See? And that is a very important picture which shows us. There are 12 authors, here you can see, who have followed during the 1,000 years. During the last 1,000 years, they have followed the oscillations of climate change. Somehow they agree, all of them. Suddenly, 1960, when we start using more and more energy, climate change start climbing, 0.8%. That's a reality. And that they agree now this is already a meter. See? And in the year 2099, before the end of this century, we will add another meter, which will make 2 meters more to the sea level. That is for sure, if you are not going to do nothing. We can reverse that, we can mitigate a little bit, but it will continue. And that is like when you are, our temperature, body temperature is about 36, 37 centigrades. Everybody has that. Yeah. Suddenly you add 1 or 2 centigrades. 39. How do you feel with 39? With fever. You are feeling in bad shape. And that's what going to experience the Earth, our poor Earth. In how many years? In 8 years. See? It may be more, even more, if we use more energy, if you don't take care about all of these producers of the climate change and so on. And that's not going to say me, but 12 authors agrees about that. See? No question about that. No debate. This is not ideological. This is not a discourse. It's a fact. Now, of course, the sun will heat more and more as long as the temperature will increase. But what is our future? Melting the glaciers. No glaciers anymore. At least in the place I'm doing my study. There may be another glaciers which are 19 or 20,000 feet above the sea level which may survive. But ours, these glaciers are going to melt before the end of the century. Well before the end of the century. If we lose the glacier, which is the very source of our existence, what can we do? Of course, there are some ways of protecting water, and some ways in which people have to manage better water, and so on. Regulations, I don't know, education. Mountains of Peru and Bolivia have lost close to a third of their glacial surface since 1970, 40 years ago. In 40 years ago, we have lost 30%. We cannot recover that anymore. Experts and environmentalists agree that the rapid melting of the spectacular Andean glaciers threaten medium-term economic and human development. Of course. So if we are thinking on development, we have to take into account what is going on with our planet. This is just an example how, this is in Spanish, how the glaciers and the ice are losing rapidly in the northern pole, in the Arctic. You know, the impact of the global temperature is not even, it's uneven. Some parts are more affected, others are not. In this case, the Arctic is the place where the temperature is growing more than any other place in the world. And that means that Greenland, the Arctic, will melt. Therefore, that water will go to the sea, affect to all of us, not only to them. Now, this is an example also of the retreat of Joricalis Glacier. Joricalis is a mountain near to Cusco, which has been studied for many, many years. And you can see the initial size of the glacier was the one which is shadowed black. And the retreat, you can see, is more and more. And we can also measure how much it will melt in the coming decades. And also underneath you see the level, the glacier. In just 30 years, we have lost a lot of glacier. We can have here some spots which are noticeable here. These are new spots, have never been there, but now they are becoming more and more. What are the events likely to happen if we do not take decisions? We don't have glaciers. So what is the consequence when we don't have glaciers? River lakes, ponds, springs, and waterland dry during the dry season. Very few water in the lake, which provides water to the watershed system. Very few water underground water reservoirs, which are so important, especially during dry seasons. Therefore, rivers will lose more and more water, and that will produce enormous social conflict. So the water shortage will produce social conflict, even between communities, between people themselves, and more with the cities, because cities will need more water, because we have you know, the population, urban population of Peru grows 3% every year. You see? Now we are 76% of the population are urban in Lima because internal migration, people are migrating from the countryside to the cities, and that happens all over Latin America. But cities need water. Those migrants who are now arriving to the city will need water, not only for consumption, for other purposes as well. Therefore, there is a need to rationalize, there is a need to take policies in order to prevent that situation to happen. If you don't nothing, if you do not nothing, if you don't take these decisions, not only local decisions but global one, you know, decisions have to be taken by rich countries, of course. They are the ones who consume more energy, and we are the consequences of that. With poor countries, we don't use much energy. See, therefore, of course, we are growing more and more population. There are population growth is more in poor countries. The more poor you are, the more population will be. Therefore, that's another scenario if we don't do nothing. I'm not being catastrophist. I'm not telling you that the war is going to finish tomorrow. No, that's just trying to explain how we should prevent these things. We should know first of all. And that's why the research we do is on the basis of that research will serve to the population. So, you know, there will be an unpredictability of climate events which will impede our ability to be certain of the outcomes in place, time, and magnitude. Weather is going to be much more unpredictable. You know, in the Andean system, in agrarian societies, our peasants used to have very clear idea when it's going to rain, when it's going to be dry season. They know very well. They communicate with the mountains. See? They worship mountains. That's what they forgot. Those mountains I have shown you are worship mountains. According to local beliefs, you know, these mountains have to be, they are sacred. You know, people have to go there to pay their respects every year. And now, interestingly enough, there are more and more people joining to these pilgrimages, you know, going on around the Andes. Even rich people are now, because they are going to be affected as well, you know, joining all to. Before it was just indigenous, peasant, religious system, but now it's becoming broader and broader, and there are more and more people who are still worshipping to the mountains, the Apus, which provides the water. See? And they're worshipping, but at the same time they are conscious that we as human beings are the cause of the loss of the glacier. So there's two kinds. They have these pilgrimage groups are becoming much more pressure groups, ecological pressure groups. See? They still are much more religiously committed, but at the same time they are pressure groups who are now asking the people to consume less and to do decisions that can harm less to the environment. So the random occurrences of climate events could be so broad as to include anything from increasing rainfall, as I said, landslides, which will occur very often, flooding, cold fronts, and droughts. Those are the consequences, which is already happening in Africa. You know how many displaced population by climate reasons are in Somalia, in Sudan, in Eritrea? Many of that people don't have water now. And that is very bad for Egypt, because the Egyptian water, the Rio Nile, comes from the mountains. So the mountains are losing water, therefore they won't have enough water. 80% of the Egyptian population lives along the Nile River. So then we have other consequences which will produce. Let's see some of them. As I said, it can modify these distinct ecological zones. It's going to modify. You know, as the warm temperatures now climbing to the cold temperature. See, those places which were colder are now becoming warmer. Of course, that can be taken advantage for indigenous population. They can cultivate new plants in those plants. But there will be one time there won't be any more water to cultivate. It could increase plagues, which is very often, which is going on in my country. There are some parts in which we have new plagues coming. There are places where there was no plagues anymore before, and they are now because of climate change. Epidemics and illnesses that could affect all manners of life. Agriculture could be disturbed and affected by severe changes in the temperature. Radiation, light, water, and wind. So, talking about my research, the city of Lima and other coastal zones, as well as the Sierra in various cities such as Huancayo, the largest city in the highlands, and the fastest growing city in the highlands, would see severe reduction of their habitability. Coastal and Andean population would have to move. That's the major subject of my speech. Where are they going to? See, they have to search somewhere else to live. They cannot go to the coast because the coast is arid, it's desert. 57% population lives in the coast, it's just 10% of the total Peruvian territory. They cannot live in their houses, in their own habitat. They have to search where to go. Likely, you know, the rainforest may be one escape, one alternative. So that's what we call the compulsory migration, non-voluntary migration, because they will be migrating without their wish. They don't like, nobody of these communities would like to abandon their places. They would like to stay there because they have lived there. They wanted to be with their families, therefore now they have to abandon. So the deterioration of living conditions would generate serious and stressful situation. What are those stresses? Water stress, the first consequence. Less quality of water, quantity of water. Even the quality of water will be disturbed by the environmental damage. See? Less clean water. If we have more population pressure, they will consume that water. Food stress, as I said. Energy stress. Labor stress, which is one of my major subjects. People have to seek labor somewhere else. They have to see in the Amazon or some places where there was no much impact of climate change, maybe. So they have to be allocated in those places, new places, and that's government policy. And that means organization. See? And also it will create a fiscal stress because governments have to allocate certain amount of money in order to provide all of these contingencies, all of these systems, early warning systems, all of these systems of education in which people have to be prepared. See? Especially the early warning systems is very good. It's going on more and more in the South Pacific where there are many institutions who are doing early warning systems. because what I do is just to prepare population for these events. And some of them would like to stay at home, some of them would like to stay in their communities, others have to abandon their places. There was a study done in Peru, how much will cost to the GDP in Peru, the climate change in 30 years. 20% of the Peruvian GDP will go just to alleviate, to see climate change effects. Of course, government stress, governance. The government people in the government have to know how to deal with these new situations in which they have to live in. See, not only in terms of budgetary, but also in terms of preparation and so on. So there will be times where people will be against their own governments. If the governments are not going enough, of course, people will be against the governments, which is happening now. 60% of the population of Peru are now confronting this situation now, and they think the government is not doing enough to alleviate those situations. It's not only that, also the multinationals, which is one big subject I'm going to talk about. So how the nation will face the situation? What are the supporting? I think we should be prepared to support actions. See, and because the climate change will affect all of us, not only to the rich, the poor, to women, men, elderly, children, to everybody. So the national, regional, and local governments have to take decisions, see, coinciding in many aspects, therefore, to take decisions accordingly. The state, as the responsible of the nation, and organized society like us, in which, political parties, trade unions, all of these organizations, which also have to take actions in order to protect. All of them organize it in just one major goal: how to deal with the new climate change. Business unions, that's what we like to, business unions. Business people have to take care about this, have to bear in mind, because the business people are the very ones which are now also affecting in our country. Peru, Bolivia, Colombia are exporters, net exporters of minerals. Ecuador is exporter of oil. Bolivia exports gas. And all of these multinationals working in the exploitation of those resources are now facing this real problem. Because in many places, they are the ones who are making the water less drinkable, the air less breathable. They are transforming the ecology by digging more and more, especially minerals, using mercury in order to separate the soil from the gold or the silver. And mercury is one of the major sources for the mental health of children in isolated communities. They are the ones who are now depleting the Amazon, and also they are the ones who are in the mountains. We have many minerals going on, exploitation going on, and that water is going to the Amazon. So Amazon Indians are going to drink that water. They are already drinking that water, especially the native Amazonians, who are immune to all of these new diseases coming from abroad. So the big corporations have to bear in mind their responsibility. I know that they are changing a little bit. They are not the ones who went to our country to take all of the minerals and then leave the rubbish and then come back up to their countries. Now they are now much more conscious about their responsibility. Therefore, I think they also have to take care with the unions, with the organized societies, the state, and all together. And the university unions, of course, like us. We are the privileged. We are the ones who can understand all of these situations. So as students, that is regardless of your specialty. If you're from literature, history, ecology, engineering, anthropology, all of the subjects can help, see, in order to reduce the impact of global change. Support for the development of contingencies plans to be applied in emergency situations. Of course, we need to create all of these contingencies. See, we need to be much more able to create these new contingencies which can reduce, at least reduce, mitigate. See, mitigate, therefore, reduce the impact of the climate change. Now, support for the development theoretical, well, of course, universities do research and applied research in all academic fields. So we all are also the ones who have take these situations. That's very good, I think, university outreach. There are many, many universities in Brazil, in Peru. Now they have the outreach program. They are not only in the ivory tower reading books, writing nice essays, piece of thesis and so on. They are going to the ground. They are going to the places where these situations are taking place. And the university supports those initiatives. Therefore, universities will be becoming more and more involved. See, giving the opportunity, for example, to do a research on these fields. See, a PhD thesis, a master's thesis would be great, but not only to take those theses to our libraries, but also to tell the population which are now being impacted what are their situations. That's what's for the research. If you don't do that, just research just goes to the university, accomplishes for a degree, and then everything is forgotten. Applied research means our commitment in order to be much more responsible, much more humane with this situation. Now, as I said again, this is not a conspiracy theory, which sometimes may say, you see. This is an example of what's going on. And this is maybe what's happening in my country, and it's maybe worse in other countries, especially sub-Saharan countries. So, yeah, it's happening in the Himalayas. I have been there a year ago. I went to the Himalayas, and so we have analyzed it, how the Himalayan system is very similar to the Andean system and is having similar effects on the populations living there. And the migration is becoming more and more usual now. People are migrating because they like education, they like better job or salary and so on. People are migrating, but they don't have water. See, and when we ask where are you going to the cities or why are you going to New Delhi, they said we don't have water. So we are seeing not only those, but also in the southern Pacific, the atoll. You know the atolls, these small islands, thousands of islands in the southern Pacific. They are in the 1 meter or 2 meters above the sea level. Some of them are disappearing. Tuvalu is one of them, already have disappeared. People were living there. People have to abandon that island to go somewhere else. See? Maldives, another island in the southern India, is disappearing. And it's the indigenous Kuna Indians in Panama, you know, they have the Kuna Indians, which are pre-Hispanic, lives in small islands in Panama, in the Caribbean Sea, and 50% of them are already now in the mainland. And the major course, their small islands are being submerged because the sea rise level is, advancing more and more. So we can, that happens in the Kilimanjaro system as well in Africa. Therefore, I think it's interesting to link with the theory, methodology, and the facts which is going on. So, as I said, the climate change is uneven. Therefore, there are some experiences which are now having success, and we can replicate those experiences somewhere else. And they may be supported by the government, by the universities, and so on. But other experiences are not having that success. Therefore, my final objective is was just to let you know this situation. For me, when I finished my book, it was a great, great personal experience, because I wrote many books, as Mauricio said, but in internal and international migration, non-climate internal and international migration. Now my last book is climate migration, internal and international. That's what I distinguish. Now when I finish my book, I'll tell you, instead of changing my person, I used to rationalize the water. Whenever I go to the shower, I use a small quantity of water. See, I prefer to walk instead of taking my car or something. The small things we can contribute. So, small things, changing ourselves, our way of consumption, our way of using energy. Because energy is a non-durable resource. We should take caution, and we should take in mind all of this. Thanks very much. Thank you. I can take any question.
Yeah, we can take any questions right now.
Okay. Yeah.
When you discuss the displacement within Peru, how people are moving to the Amazon, is that in the process, are they creating new cities, or do we see that people are going to already existing cities? Because you can imagine that could lead to greater deforestation, which only exacerbates the problem.
Yeah, I think the migration cost driven by climate change will add to the existing non-climate migration, which is still going on. The non-climate migration will go on and on and on. But at the same time, the climate migration will be added on top of that. Many Andean people are going on to the Amazon, mostly to the rivers, along the rivers, where they can cultivate sometimes the coca leaf plantations, because as you know, many of these migrants goes from the highlands, because they compare the salaries they get in their place of origin, and they compare with the salaries they can get planting coca leaves, and they see enormous difference. Therefore, they are very much attracted by that. They are not traffickers. They are just fulfill one requirement in the chain of cocaine transportation. And therefore, there are some people who are going that way. And also, there are other people who are not going anymore to the coast, because coast is overpopulated. And they start going to the jungle with the idea of, getting better life. And some of them gets better life. Others who are living near to these glaciers, which is being affected by the climate change, are going, because there is no water, to the lowlands. They go to along the rivers or the cities, existing cities. In the Amazon of Peru, the cities are growing more and more than any other parts of in Peru. See, because that's migration taking place. Before was to the coast, now they are shifting the migration to the Amazon. But that's not a solution, because as you know, the ecology of the Amazon is very fragile, very fragile. Therefore, it has some limits as well. But still, it seems to be the place they can go nowadays, as a response to the climate change. Any other question, please? Yeah, then you. Yeah.
What's the best way to protect climate change migrants, either internally or internationally?
Yeah, I think it's have to be seen in policies, in global policies. Those places where there was success mitigating the impact of climate change, there are very good places. There's enormous literature on that, which can tell us how successful were these projects. That's another one. Another one is, to educate population to consume less energy, to change their habits, which is very easy. It's not that difficult to change habits. If we are 1, 2, 3, then we can be millions. And the other one is more technological, which is create the dams, reservoirs of water. Especially when the glacier is melting, you can keep that water, especially for dry seasons. During wet seasons, you can use the rain as a source, but dry seasons, therefore, small reservoirs might be another answer. But there have to be all of these decisions have to be political decisions. Who is going to do that? And what kind of government is likely to do so? Probably the right-wing governments are not going to do so, because they are very close to the international corporations, to the rich countries. The democratic, social democrats, which are in the middle, see, left-wing political parties are now much more concerned about this. But sometimes these left-wing political parties take this as a discourse. Marxism is over. So what is our new discourse? Climate change. And when you ask what is climate change about, they don't know what they are talking about. So therefore, it's a danger that we can convert climate change in a political discourse. We have to be much more scientific, much objective, and to rely in research like this I have shown to you, rely research which is going on and on more and more now. Many Americans go in there. Who was the first person who discovered there was going to be a glacier melt in Peru? Glacier retreat? Was a scientist called Thomas. I don't know his name, but it's Thomas. Now he's very ill. He was the one, 20 years ago. He went to that, the Koikalis mountain. He sort of noticing that there was when he went 2 years, 3 years after, there was less and less glaciers, ice, and then they said, what's going on here? So he went every year, and then he was the one who warned us about the situation. Of course, that's an interesting thing, because that is a political decision of the country allowing them, see, and also students who would like to join this person who are the pioneer of the climate change, the glacier retreat. All of those situations which are exemplified in many texts, many authors can be read. If you go to internet, you see IPCC, you'll see thousands of reports about the effects, the causes and effects of climate change taking place all over the world, in the desert, in the mountains, in the arids, see, in the plateau, in the Amazon, the Southern Pacific, and so on. But still we need, I think, to join all of these reports and take conclusions, because these reports are still separated from one to another. You have to make all together, pull all together, and then to have better objectives and conclusions, which can be really good for the countries, especially for countries like the tropical countries, like Peru, tropical countries, which are now, Peru has the 70% of the glaciers in the tropics, and we are losing. Altogether in Peru we have lost 30%, not only in the place I am doing my study, 30%. And everybody agrees that in 80, 90, 100 years we'll lose all of the glaciers. See? Now, this is an answer, but a partial answer. We can go on, and yeah, you have the question.
You talked a bit about how academics should go into areas where indigenous populations are located and share the future effects. Are there ways that you see for those populations to participate?
Oh yeah.
In research? Can you expand a little bit more on that?
Yeah, of course, very, very much. And they are becoming more and more conscious about their situation, and they know that especially women is the one who stays at home. Women is the one who is noticing the scarcity of water, the quality of water. See? She cannot take the animals to the field because there's no place to feed. Women, because men may be migrating somewhere else. He's somewhere else. See? But women. So there are literature about the role of women on the preserving climate change. And just a moment. And also now there are more awareness among the local population about this. Of course, we need to give them a very simple ideas about the effects. We cannot do a class like this to them. You just have to tell them. And sometimes I was so satisfied when I communicate all of this in their own language, especially to women, because women keeps more the language, native language, than men. Yes, and also, yeah, I think, but sometimes these populations are not waiting to be organized, to have clear objectives and so on. Sometimes they're erupting socially, see, clashes, deaths against the government, against the multinationals who are still there, who wants the gold, the iron, the copper, see? And they want to stay there. They want to invest billions of. There was one company who wanted to invest $4 billion to extract gold in a northern part of Peru. And this company had to cancel because there is enormous opposition of the population. Of course, politically oriented. But so this company is now waiting. They said, okay, we are not going to exploit anymore, to do exploration and exploitation, and therefore we'll see. So it's dead. The project is dead now. Yeah.
I was in Ecuador last year, and the thing that was most amazing is that there are two Chinese companies that are now on contracts to mine the wet mineral. And there was a march for life that indigenous people came from all over the country to Quito, the capital, to protest it. But I was just amazed that these are Chinese companies. We've got US multinationals, we've got European multinationals.
Yeah.
And they're going to destroy the rainforest. They're going to destroy and clear-cut everything.
You know, have to.
One of the things that I was struck by is that, you know, this is a fairly new president of the country. And, you know, you're faced with trying to bring up the poor people in your country with education and health, et cetera, which he's done a lot of. But we give the money to do it. So I think that's why these contracts are being signed. So So these are decisions that are really
Yeah, I think you are right. You are right. For example, there was a case where in Ecuador and Peru, the Chinese wanted to invest. You know, if the Chinese want to come, it's welcome. Because, you know, they don't have the image of the United States or Canada, or Australia, or England. They are the imperialists, you know, they shouldn't come here. But the Chinese, welcome. You know, the Chinese have the worst tradition of damaging the environment all over the world. They are now in Africa, damaging all of these small countries. There are 10 more environmentally damaged cities in the world. See? 8 of them are in China. And China has only 30 years of what we can call the Industrial Revolution, or, you know, 30 years. In 30 years, they have converted 8 cities, 8 of their own cities, the most polluted countries. Say England. England has more than 150 or 80 years of Industrial Revolution. They don't have that record. And that is another situation. If the Chinese coming, okay, welcome. And that's happening in Ecuador. See, why is that? You know, Chinese are harmless. That has to be seen in politics as well, you know, the politics against the governments. The idea, they still have the idea that the United States is the one who came in the early 40s, 50s to exploit minerals. Of course, all of these enclaves created in Bolivia, Peru, and so on are American owned. Of course, they have damaged a lot the environment. They used to go exploit and then to leave all of the rubbish there. And then, but not anymore now. Not anymore. So, how can we reconcile development, meaning salary, jobs, incomes, better education, which these companies are bringing because they have a lot of taxes, pay a lot of taxes to the country. You know, Peru is growing in the last 10 years an average of 8%, which is similar to China. See? And that's because our mineral export. See? And therefore, that may be also be a misleading, because when you see how development can bring all of this idea, so therefore the idea, that's what anthropologists now are working. Who knows the community? Who knows the native community in the Amazon? See, how do they live? What do they think? How do they think about their water, the mountains? Anthropologists. Therefore, they are hiring anthropologists to be the intermediate between big multinationals and the communities. Most of my students are now working there, good salaries. And therefore, I think it's an ethical situation, it's ethics, morality. See? I don't deny that anthropologists should go to work with multinationals. Multinationals want now, not the one person who say how good you are. See? How good you are because you bring development, bring better salaries and so on. Multinationals want anthropologists to tell the truth. Anthropologists have to say the truth, therefore even can be against the multinational. But that's what they need to hear, something, a voice which can be different to those who are always saying, oh, how good are the multinationals. See? And that is going on and on in Africa. African countries now opening. There will be a time where China will be energy independent, mineral independent. See? Therefore, we will not have much minerals to sell to China. The Argentinians and Brazilians are not going to have enough soya bean to sell China. Therefore, if China becomes independent, all of those resources, they are buying more and more and more. You know, so we have to see that development cannot be only relying on export, raw material export. We have to diversify. And in that sense, Peru is doing well. We are not only relying on minerals, we are producing agriculture, we are exporting non-traditional products, which are becoming more and more. We are exporting food, the Peruvian cuisine. It's becoming more and more famous around the world. So therefore, that is the answer, to diversify, not only to rely on production, but also to take other exports. Therefore, minerals can fail, but we have all of this. Like the peasant population in the Andes. The peasant population in the Andes, in one small pot, they cultivate 3-4 times of quinoa, or 4-5 times of potato, maize, all of these grains, which are, you know, therefore there may be a rainy season or drought. They know how to, one of them might die, see, might diminish, but the rest are still growing. That is diversification. That is why they survived for many, many years in small plots. See? So I think we have to learn a lot from the indigenous population, because they are the ones who preserve better the environment. They are the ones who diversify the production. See? They are the ones who knows very well the climate, even though nowadays they are now being disturbed by this situation from changing climate and so on. Therefore, just one thing. Your question, linking all of this population, their knowledge, see, the responses they have, because they are the ones who are living there. We are living in the city. Linking them with the academia, with trade unions, all of them, I think will be in better position. Not to answer to the whole problem, but at least to provide some alternatives to the population.
With that, we can close. I'd like to thank Professor Altamirano for coming. Thank you very much. It was a great talk.
Thank you.